everybody, and welcome back to another video. Happy Halloween to all who celebrate. I hope you guys have an absolutely amazing candy-filled day with the people you care about, and that you make lots of good memories. I know I sure adore this holiday in all its spookiness. I'm going to pass out treats to the dogs that trick-or-treat here too, really living up to my name. But today, I'm going to be discussing one of my favorite pieces of additional Wings of Fire content, and that's the Winglets. Many fans actually aren't even aware of these short stories, or have never gotten the chance to read them. But after 9 years, we finally got confirmation that more are actually on the way. I thought now would be the perfect time to discuss what the Winglets are all about, as well as reiterate what we'll be seeing next from this miniseries. It may not be what you think. But before we begin, a huge shout out to my patrons. Dervler95, Thistle, Noobto, Pyvernuke, Avril, Pancake, Ascarada, Adequin, Alex Cleaver, Shadowhunter, That One Sea-Wing, Moonclaw, Isaac, Iris, and Minecraft Wiz9. Thank you all so much for supporting me. Links to their social medias are in the description down below. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. The first ever Winglet was released on March 31st, 2015. This one was different from the ones that would follow it, as it was arranged as a series of back and forth letters between two dragons. It's titled Prisoner, and ultimately focused on the story of Starflight's sister, Fierce Teeth. We didn't get nearly enough of this Nightwing in the books, so having some time to actually focus on her and build her character up even more was such a highlight. I mean, that's the point of Winglets. They're 30 to 50 page long tales about underrated dragons in the books, and are written to additionally fill the gap between some releases. Prisoners is about Fierce Teeth communicating with Saguaro. While imprisoned, Fierce Teeth wrote letters to this dragon in order to convince her to set her and her partner free. This Nightwing told Saguaro of her past, detailing the way she felt robbed of a chance at destiny by Farsight's obsession with her brother's egg. Fierce Teeth humanized herself by discussing how she fell in love with Strongwings on the volcano, and on the other side of the Animus Tunnel, and only felt free when he was there. The last letter detailed Fierce Teeth's plans of her assassination would have succeeded before. She'd have been queen and leader of the Nightwings, with Byrne ruling by her side. Saguaro was fairly moved by these letters, and ended up deciding to help Fierce Teeth escape. That way, they could both plot their own ways to overthrow what was left. She proved herself as trustworthy enough to work with, and selfless for parts of the cause. This Winglet told readers way more about Fierce Teeth than we ever knew, expanding her as honestly a pretty realistic character whose interesting nature got explained in many ways. I have to say that this was my favorite short story of all. Something about it was just so refreshing to read, maybe because of the perspective. It was really cool to get to read from the POV of someone who isn't like the Dragonettes that head the main series books. Fierce Teeth is not only an adult, but also shares a much different personality. I'd be down to return to the character again, especially after this Winglet and the guidebook. The next stack-size story came in the form of Assassin, which is the most famous overall. It was released on September 29th, 2015. This Winglet took on the format the rest would follow with, which was one linear story set in the past. Only this time, though we were still on the topic of Nightwings, Deathbringer was chosen as the POV dragon. The tale follows a look into his past on the volcanic island. His mother, Quickstrike, was an assassin for the tribe. She wanted her son to join her on his first mission in the same family business, but Moroseer and Greatness initially refused. It was then Queen Battlewinter gave him his task. If Deathbringer could murder one of the two exposable Nightwings of the tribe under the cover of midnight without a single soul knowing he did, he'd be allowed to leave. When Deathbringer ultimately succeeded, he followed Quickstrike to mainland Pyria, now knowing the true plan his tribe had in order to keep dragging out the war. On the way, Quickstrike was knocked unconscious, basically comatose, by a terrible lightning strike, which caused her son to end up believing he had to carry out the rest of the mission alone. Deathbringer then killed Tempest, a very important and bold-seeming general. He blamed the attack on others using the note he had attached to the spear, causing everyone to blame each other, and a peace deal was entirely called off. However, the young assassin blamed himself for what happened to Quickstrike, as leaving her side resulted in the Sandwings finding her and killing her while she was unresponsive. Deathbringer then vowed that if he had anyone else to ever care about again, that he wouldn't put his mission first. This short story gave us even more of Gil, and introduced a short-lived character that fans fell in love with. I mean, Tempest was so much fun to read about, and her end was crazy. The next winglet was Deserter, which was released March 29th, 2016. We changed tribes at last, shifting our attention to the Sandwings. Specifically, this short prequel tale was all about Sixclaws, a true reader favorite from the end of the first arc. It gave us the character's backstory in the Kingdom of Sand, and showed the important events of his life before he joined the Scorpion Den. We got a lot of Sandwing lore through conversations Sixclaws had with his family when he was younger, especially having to do with the succession. Before the war even began, this was on everybody's minds, especially considering the latest egg to hatch, which contained the 𝙒𝙊𝙍𝙁𝙁. They all believed that it would be Oasis's sister who took the throne, rather than one of the queen's daughters. I'd like to let it be known that in the original take, I called him Six Flags, like the theme park company. I just think that's hilarious. I was laughing so much. I realized the second I said it. Oh my gosh. A few years later, Smolder told Sixclaws that his sisters were planning something big. The Sandwing, who had just become an adult, met Dune, who we would later see as a guardian of the Dragonets of Destiny. These two became very close friends quickly. When the youngest princess got caught up in a sandstorm, King Char asked Sixclaws and Dune, who had saved her, to join the army. We then cut to the future again, only on the most historic Pyrrhian night in all of recent history, the death of Queen Oasis. However, it didn't start so intensely. Even just minutes prior to her killing, Scald, Singe, Dune, and Sixclaws were hanging out as friends, comforting Prince Smolder after the disappearance of his girlfriend. Oasis's death changed everything, causing us to take the biggest time jump of the Winglets, taking readers 12 years into the war. Dune was terribly injured, and Sixclaws talked to Burn. The oldest Sounding Princess disagreed with his plan to invade the borders of the Ice Kingdom to find and kill Blaze. Rather, Burn believed her side should fight against the Mudwings instead. Deathbringer approached Sixclaws in the dark when she left, suggesting he join the Scorpion Den instead. Though the Sandwing disagreed at first, Burn destroying Dune's wing and leg drove him to realize he was following the wrong dragon, sending Sixclaws to the Scorpion Den after all, which ended up changing his life. And the fourth winglet, Runaway, was released on September 27th, 2016. It's currently the oldest book in the Wings of Fire timeline, as it took place thousands of years before the events of the first novel. This short story was centered on the love tale of Arctic and Foeslayer, giving us even more than what we learned in Darkstalker's prologue. We also get another POV here in the form of Snowflake, who was originally engaged to Arctic. We start off by showing Foeslayer's relationship with her mother. Prudence argues with her daughter, disbelieving that an Icewing gave her the earrings she now wore. Foeslayer saw Snowflake after that moment, and remembered with heartbreak that the dragon she loved was set to be married to another. After that, we actually got to switch to Snowflake's point of view, who started her chapter by reflecting on how much she hated the Royal Icewings, especially Queen Diamond. However, she ended up running into and meeting Snowfox, Diamond's niece. The two got off incredibly well from the start, both sharing the same thoughts on everything that was happening in the palace side of the kingdom. Following their nice moment together, we get Arctic's perspective with his mother. When she asked why he was out of his room so late, the prince lied about his trip to see 𝙂𝙗 by claiming he was still wondering about what to do with his one animus spell. We learn that Diamond helped for him to create a weather-predicting mirror or bowl, which causes 𝙂𝙗 to laugh when she hears of it. Because seriously, that's what Diamond comes up with? Using magic of unlimited power to make a weather predictor? He could have just enchanted something to tell the kingdom anything. Snowflake and Snowfox schemed to get out of the former's arranged marriage by spreading a lie about Arctic and 𝙂𝙗's forbidden love to try getting the prince out. After that plan is put into action, the two lovers fled the Ice Kingdom, with Arctic accidentally wounding Snowflake on the way out. It was that moment that worried 𝙂𝙗 about his soul, though the two still fly off together, unknowingly about to change the course of Pyria and Pentala forever. But with only Prisoners, Assassin, Deserter, and Runaway, the Winglets just stopped. Gone were the days of 2 releasing every year to fill the gap between books. But it's not like the idea of these short stories were forgotten. We've got several paperback and ebook compilation copies of the Winglets, and Tui even told us which others she wanted to write someday. However, they just never came. Not until this month, when the author of the novels finally confirmed that not only will we be getting additional Winglets, but also one was already written or about to be. We know its story, and it'll be one all about Cliff and his father. She's thrown around lots of other ideas she hopes to get to as well, such as a winglet on Icicle's trial, Clear Sight in the Beetle Wings, Peril meeting Sky, and many more. I cannot wait to read these someday if they end up happening. But that's pretty much it for this video. What do you guys think about the Winglets? Which is your favorite, and when did you end up reading them? If you haven't, do you want to? Let me know down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.